Hey guys, Dozer here bringing you a new video. This time we're going to be talking about a tier list of how I am currently viewing the Prism matchup spread for all the heroes in the game. Right now, with the Ball Lightning and Plunder Run bans pre-Everfest, and currently this is being recorded on the 19th of January, so we have not even really hit the throng of spoiler season yet. I've been doing a lot of testing, and I wanted to share with you guys my thoughts on the different matchups for Prism, how they're evolving, and what to be on the lookout for as ProQuest approaches, and to be sure to look at which classes are going to benefit the most from new cards in Everfest, as well as which heroes might have their matchups skewed one way or the other based on new tools that they're getting. Again, hopefully Prism's going to get some new tools in Everfest that really help her awkward matchups and give her some new play lines, so let's keep our fingers crossed for that. In the meantime, we're going to start out alphabetically here with Azalea. Azalea is definitely favored for Prism, definitely in that 70-30% plus category. Azalea struggles to fire more than one arrow per turn, and even with a very low to the ground, Ravenous Rabble, Scar for Scar type of Azalea list, Prism can normally outvalue that with Heralds, as well as the Tome and Spectra plays that she can do, especially if Prism ever gets down an Arclight Sentinel to really just jam the Azalea's turn. The Azalea player can be put at a very big disadvantage very early on. Definitely one of Prism's more favorite matchups, and until we see something new from Everfest, I don't think that's going to change. The biggest thing about that is just the fact that Azalea's best bow is Death Dealer, and Death Dealer only can be used once per turn with Azalea at the moment, so even with cards like Bolton Shot being very powerful cards, it doesn't let Azalea kill multiple auras, get action points, swing a weapon reliably every turn. Prism has a pretty good matchup into Azalea because of that. Bolton, I would say, is more like a 60-40. I've heard a lot of people say that they think Bolton is favored for Bolton in this matchup, but I just don't see it. If Prism is running things like defense reactions and non-attack actions that block well, like Whispers of the Oracle specifically, but even if you're not running that, if you're running like Sync Belows and Fate Foreseens and such, the Bolton player has to bend over backwards to get go again. Their best play is normally going to be a Take Flight charged into a Raiden Swing, and that's like 7 damage on a turn. That's kind of nothing. Sure, the Bolton player might be able to try and, create a Steel Hand or whatever for a little bit more damage, but his damage output's very low with the Raiden build, and if you can jam him, like let's say he Bolt of Courages you and you just don't block, if he doesn't Snapdragon Scalers, then or create a Steel Hand into using his attack reaction, his turn's over and the card draw doesn't matter. If you then respond with a Soul Shield on his create a Steel Hand Bolt of Courage, he's now wasted 2 cards, he's not hit you, and you're able to protect your shields very well against Bolton. I think it's a very favored matchup for Prism when you run the tank build specifically. Sure, against Aura, he might do well, and against Heralds, he might do well, but against a heavy defensive Prism, I don't think he does well at all. Bravo is also very favored for Prism. I think it kind of sits between 60-40 and 70-30 plus. I have not lost to a Bravo in a long time, and I've played against very good Bravos, or very high competitive reaching Bravos. So I would be safe to say that's a 60-40 favored for Prism. I think if the Bravo plays it perfectly, and has a deck list that actually works into Prism, the Bravo can definitely win at certain times, but and especially with Everfest, Macho Grande and such are going to make that matchup a lot more pressuring for the Bravo because he has more access to just easy dominate. But I do think Prism's ability to run heavy defense reactions like Unmovable, to be able to run Spectras that kind of get around the Bravos on hit effects, such as Crippling Crush or Pummels and such, really gives Prism an edge. As she snowballs out of control faster than the Bravo can really handle due to the expensive nature of his kit and the lack of Go Again that he has. Even with Go Again cards, it's still not really good enough to handle Prism. Chain, I would say, is a slightly favored matchup these days to 50-50 range. I'm going to give it to 60-40 because I have not lost with Chain since the Seeds ban. If all you do is block out and fatigue him, thanks to Phantasmal Footsteps and Null Rune, it's very hard for Chain to get any momentum against you. So as long as you are running as many blocks as possible, you're blocking effectively, the Chain shouldn't be able to kill you, especially without seeds. So you should be able to grind him down, and then eventually turn the game around and win. Dash is definitely in that 50-50 territory, where depending on the Dash build, she can be difficult to deal with because you can't really attack her with Phantasms very reliably due to her access to Command and Conquer, Throttle Red, as well as the Maximum Velocity, which just outright counters any Herald that you might have. The thing is that Dash has the Pistol plan as well, which in the late game presents more damage than you can deal with, and you can never block it out and then turn the game around. So as Prism, you have to start out strong and try and win the game by the mid game, which is good for you because Dash has to take a lot of time to gear up and build up steam. Haha. And sorry, couldn't help myself. Yeah, Dash is a very good hero though, and so she's reliable. And if you don't have the right game plan into her, you can definitely struggle a lot. But she is beatable for sure, though you definitely can lose to her more than you can to these other champions or heroes. Dorinthia, I would say, is in that 70-30 tier. Dawnblade Dorinthia, especially, if you have the defense reactions, you can really effectively shut her down. And if she doesn't hit you with her first attack, her turn's kind of over. And then you can start building up Spectral Shields and just snowball out of control from there. Axis Dorinthia also doesn't help at all. Its damage output is too low for you to worry about, and is not as tricky with attack reactions and such. So that's normally a very easy way to win the game there. Definitely would not be afraid of Dorinthia as Prism, especially with Arclight Sentinel and stuff like that. Even with Time Snap, she just really struggles. Kano is very similar, where he doesn't have a way to deal with Genesis and Ode to Wrath and Merciful and such, and your Spectral Shields really help counter his arcane damage. So in his on hits and such, you have Halo as well to be able to stop key on hits, and your Heralds will just race him down really quickly. You only need to hit him with 6 blue Heralds to kill him. So if he's blocking this whole hand, his turn really sucks. So normally you can just keep it the pressure forever. He actually can't stop Erudition either unless he runs like Iron Rod or something, or Ironhide. So that's another thing where the Kano player just is really going to struggle to try and race you down faster than you can get him down, especially if you've got all the tools in your opening hands and just kind of pound him in the dust. Katsu is definitely, and this will be Aggro Katsu. Aggro Katsu to me definitely feels like it's a 50-50 with the right build. With the tank Prism game plan, you definitely feel unfavored because it's really hard for you to build up momentum against him, and then if you ever fall behind, you just cannot get back into the game. Turtle Katsu and Control Katsu, on the other hand, you have a lot more freedom to be able to play that longer grind game, but if you're playing against Aggro Katsu, and especially if they just hard draw Whelming Gust Wave off and Surging Strike, and then you block those, and they have Magenshi as well in hand, you can just take a lot of damage that you can't afford to take. That is a deck that you have to try and block out as much as possible, and then try and just deny as many things as possible. You can try and pivot to a more mid-range Prism where you have like the pummels and CNCs and all these things, but you will sacrifice your other matchups to do that. And so Aggro Katsu is definitely one of those decks that you can make it a 50-50, but for Tank Prism, it's definitely unfavored, and you have to watch out for that matchup for sure. Levia is definitely in that 60-40 territory. Levia can win against Prism, but it takes a lot of things going right for that to happen. Levia naturally has a lot of weaknesses in the fact that she can not only kill herself to Blood Debt by no fault of her own, but if you're throwing out Spectras, she has to try and roll Scab Skins to deal with those because she doesn't have access to Sand Sketch Plan, etc. And it's much more risky for her to roll her Scab Skins than it is for Rhinar. So putting her into that lose-lose situation of like, okay, well, if you don't roll Scabs, I'm going to start snowballing on you, or if you do roll Scabs and you fail your roll, then, which is a 50-50 chance because 1 action points or 0 is an equally good result for Prism in that situation. Obviously, if they roll a 1, it's catastrophic for them. So that's really good for Prism. Additionally, she doesn't have access to Intimidate, so she can't really mess with your turns as much as Rhinar can. And so all you really have left to worry about is the Phantasm popping, which you don't care about when you're playing an Aura, Focused, or Tank build anyway. So I would say Levy's definitely favored, but if she high rolls you, she'll win. You know, that's just going to happen. Reinar, on the other hand, is like the worst matchup you can probably ever have as Prism. Everything he does counters you. The 6s mean you can never attack, even with Triumphs, because he has like 7s and 9s in there. The Scab Skins, for like literal risk at all, means that he can easily walk through your Spectras if you ever try to get them out. And Sand Sketch Plan as well also gives him easy access to action points to kill your auras. Access to the weapon and cheap attacks means that Reinar can normally just threaten your shields very well, especially with Intimidate. So Reinar, super unfavored, super bad matchup. It'll take a lot of tools for Prism to make that matchup better in Everfest. Whereas for Katsu and stuff, that's just kind of how you build your deck. And all these other matchups are already kind of favored for her. So barring something really crazy, these matchups are going to be still very Prism favored by the core mechanics of their classes. Viserai, on the other hand, definitely feels like a 50-50 to unfavored depending on your matchup or your deck list. So if you're running full auras and defensive, you can definitely make Viserai a 50-50, where you can still lose to a Viserai player playing it well or getting lucky with his draws compared to yours. But if you make Spectras, the Viserai is going to struggle to get enough go again to handle those while pressuring your face. And if he wastes his rune chance, he's going to have a really hard time of stringing together powerful turns. So definitely very winnable with a pure aura or tank hybrid game plan. The only time Viserai becomes unfavored is when you try and race him with mid-range. Mid-range Viserai into mid-range Prism, Viserai wins that 100% of the time. Because if you ever try to attack him with a Herald and he has a Ninth Blade, Amplify, or CNC in hand, you just start losing the race. And then once you're behind, you're having to take Rosetta Thorn chip damage to the face as well as mixed damage. And you'll never really be able to claw your way back into the game from that point. So again, assuming playing tank Prism, Viserai is a 50-50, possibly favored, possibly unfavored, depending on draws. So I would put it like a coin flip. Earth Briar, which is the one we have left. We'll see it for the end here. Ice Lexi is definitely a good matchup for Prism. Prism has a ton of floating resources with blues and yellows that other decks don't have access to, which helps break through the breakpoints that Lexi has. Unless the Lexi is absolutely hitting the nuts every turn and just really staying on the front foot the entire game, she has the same problem as Prism, where because of her weapon and because of the access to, or because of the dependence on having a large hand to her turns, Lexi, Lightning or Ice or Hybrid or whatever you want to say, is going to struggle into Prism because they can't pop the Phantasms reliably. They can't really efficiently kill the Spectras while also pressuring, and they also can't normally bust through a ton of defensive block that Prism likes to do with the shields. So Lexi is definitely very favored for Prism. Oldheim, on the other hand, is also very favored for Prism, but in a very different way. So Oldheim is very slow deck. He doesn't present a lot of damage. Even with Macho Grande coming in Everfest, if Prism runs enough D-Reacts, she's going to be able to handle that, because unless the Oldheim has a 5-card hand of 3 blues, Macho Grande, and a Pummel mixed in there, they're not going to be able to use that Dominate very effectively to break shields. And since Prism has access to Glisten, which can attack for free every turn for 4, 7, and then 10, and possibly more if it's an Oldheim-dominated metagame, Prism should be very favored into Oldheim, as she can normally just block him out very well and build up momentum until he can't win the game anymore, once he is no longer able to pressure the shields fast enough. So I put Oldheim up there. And then Briar, Earth Briar, I haven't had enough time to test since the ball ban, but before the Cheerios Briar list became dominant, I had tested against Earth Briar to some degree. I do think that Earth Briar, with the lack of Earth tokens, makes things a bit interesting, because of the errata to Briar only allowing her to make 1 Earth token, you can potentially race her. The problem is with Earth Briar is that she's running Earth cards such as Evergreen or the like. She's going to be able to, or Burgeoning or something, she'll be able to pop your Phantasms pretty reliably, especially if she's running Ninth Blade for the sideboard, CNC, all these things. And Mount Heroic also works against Phantasm, because it works while you're defending as well, I believe. So Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it works that way. So Channel Mount Heroic makes it really hard to attack into Briar that way, but with the Tank Prism game plan and the auras, she has a lot less access to the go wide, a lot less access to the go again, and so she's going to, like on a turn where she tries to do Mount Heroic, if you drop an Arc Light, she's going to waste a lot of value, and you'll be able to stave her off while you chip her down, especially because she's not going to have as much freedom to do Sting Ball to invalidate your shield game plan. So I would put Earthbriar probably around 50-50 to 60-40. I think for the prettiness of this graph, we're going to put it at 50-50 for now, because I just don't know enough to say. But I would definitely say that out of the difficulty of these matchups, I'll do it the most difficult on the left, least difficult on the right. I would definitely say that Chain is the most difficult, 60-40, and then Bolton, and then Bravo, and then Levia. I would say that Azalea is probably the easiest matchup. Dory, Kano are all kind of in the same camp, but I don't even see how Dory wins against Prism, so we'll put Kano here. And then we'll put Lexi at the far right, because Lexi's probably the best of the worst matchups. Right, no, so I would put her here. I did it the opposite direction. My fault. Yeah, so we'll do it that way. Lexi's the best of those to face Prism. Chain's the best to face Prism. For 50-50, I would say that probably Dash, Vizrai, Briar, that makes sense to me, and then Katsu and Reinar are in the right order. So best on the left, worst on the right. Azalea is the absolute worst character against Prism, and Reinar is currently the absolute best versus Prism. So as you approach the RTN season, consider your local meta, think about what heroes you're likely to see, and know that barring some really crazy cards, these are likely going to be the matchups going forward. And I'll keep you posted as new cards come out. We can try and theory craft to see which decks are going to be a problem going into ProQuest season. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.